Your voice might be strong, but nobody's buying it with your face on the cover. This is business. No place for a poor black girl from a church choir. My name is Selena Carter. I am 63 years old now, and those words still burn like fresh scars. I hear them when I wake. I hear them in the quiet between breaths. I hear them under every memory of the path that led me here. I did not come back to beg. I came back to call a song by its true name, and to say mine without shaking. When I was 18, my whole life fit inside a hymnal in a notebook. I sang harmony in a church choir, and I wrote alone at night, pressing sorrow into lines until the paper softened. That was when Richard Hale found me. His eyes did not slide past me the way other eyes did. He listened, and I mistook listening for care. After the service, he took my hand with a smile heavy as jewelry and said, "With that voice, and with the songs you write, I can make you a star." Hope arrived like air after drowning. A rich white man, a door I had never seen open, telling a black church girl she could be heard beyond these walls. I showed him my notebook, the creased pages, the chorus I had carved in the dark until it felt like bone. He read and nodded slowly, like a man who already owned what he touched. "Trust me," he said. "This will be the one." I wanted to leave hunger behind, so I believed him. I handed over the pages like an organ I could live without. My first time in a real studio, my hands shook and my throat ran hot. But when the music rose, I poured my life into the song I called Broken Promise. The verses felt like confession, the chorus like a storm breaking. In the middle of it, I let myself shout one hard line the way I had always heard it inside me, raw, imperfect, alive. When silence fell, I thought I had been seen. Richard put a warm hand on my shoulder, called me sweetheart, and breathed a future into my ear. "The city will know your name." I walked home with my chest bright and aching, rehearsing the moment my mother would hear me on the radio, tasting the shape of my name in print. It took only a little while for the promise to break. The single came out. The title was mine. The melody was mine. The line that split the chorus like lightning was mine. But the name on the sleeve was not. They printed Janet Cole in bold letters and tucked the writing credit under a company and a producer. My name was not missing by mistake. My name had been erased by design. I stared until the letters swam. The applause belonged to someone else wearing my story. I felt small again, smaller than I had ever been, as if I had been lifted into light just to be shown the size of the drop. I took my notebook to Richard and laid it on his desk like a heart. "That was my song," I said. "I wrote every word. You promised." He leaned back, calm as ice. "Your name will not sell. We need a face they want to buy. Janet gives them that." "You used me," I said. "You stole what was mine." He smiled, measured and tired of my insistence. "Listen, sweetheart. Be grateful. Without me, your little church song would rot in that notebook. This is business. People pay for names with machines behind them, for the pretty white girl, not a poor black girl from a choir nobody cares about. A girl like you." He did not need to say the word black. He let the shape of his smile do the rest. Those words did not just take a song. They made a cage out of my skin. I told him the pages were mine, the melody was mine, the chorus had been born from my breath. He slid a stack of papers across the desk, stamps and signatures I did not own. "The company registered the song," he said. "You signed the releases. The door you want has another key, another face." His voice never rose. Cruelty did not need volume. There was no headline to expose me. I was not famous enough to be exposed. The punishment was quieter, the kind that leaves no proof but a life turned inward. Calls were not returned. Meetings were always full. A booking manager smiled kindly and said it would be better if I did not come by again. A producer who once praised my voice now trained Janet on how to carry what had never come from her throat. People spoke softly when they passed me in hallways and said good luck the way you say good luck to someone you will never see again. I learned what erasure feels like from the inside. It is not a gunshot. It is a slow hand over your mouth. It is a nod that slides past you. It is a door that looks open until you reach it. I knocked until my knuckles ached, and all I heard back was silence. No scandal, no stage to fall from, only the careful, practiced quiet of an industry that had decided I did not exist. That night I went home with the only thing that still answered to my name. I opened my notebook to the page where the chorus lived. The paper smelled like sleeplessness. My handwriting looked stubborn and unsure, like a child trying to stand. I pressed my palm over the ink and felt nothing move. I cried without sound, the way a person cries when sound has been stolen. I was not angry enough to burn the pages. I was not gentle enough to forgive. I was something else. A woman holding a song that had been taken and renamed in front of her. I asked myself what could not be taken. Not the paper, not the credit, not the stage. All of those had already been carried away like furniture during an eviction. What remained was the way the chorus lived in my body, the way I tightened my breath before the shout, the weight of the words when I lined them up behind my teeth, the certainty that the song had come through me and would never belong to anyone else in the place that mattered most, the inside. So I made a vow that felt like swallowing fire. I will not beg. I will not break my voice against a wall that has no ears. I will keep the song where they cannot forge it. I will keep the shout lit like a small lamp that refuses to go out. I will live long enough to return. And when I do, I will not ask permission. I will call the song by its true name, and I will say my own without shaking. That was the day I left music behind. Not because I wanted to, but because every door taught me I was unwelcome. I stepped away from stages and learned to live in the spaces where no one listened. People say leaving is a choice. Sometimes it is the last thing left when choice is gone. The world forgot me because forgetting cost them nothing. But I remember his promise and the weight of the betrayal. I remember the quiet that followed like a tide that did not turn. And beneath that quiet, I remember the sound that is still mine. The breath before the chorus, the rise, the strike, the truth that survived. I carried it into the dark. I carried it through the years that asked me to disappear. And when the night of my return finally comes, not to plead, not to be forgiven, they told me not to come back, not in anger, not even in cruelty, just a soft dismissal, the kind that ends everything without raising its voice. It would be better if you didn't return. And the door closed. That was the moment I understood. I was not wanted, not needed, not remembered. The song had been taken, the credit had been stamped under another name, and I was erased before I had even begun. No one chased me out. No one argued. The silence was enough. So I did what the forgotten do. I worked. I tied aprons. I carried trays until my wrists burned. I scrubbed floors that smelled of bleach, bent over beds in motels where strangers came and went without looking me in the eye. I washed dishes until steam bit my skin, leaving pale scars across my hands. I told myself this is only for now, only until the next chance. But the chance never came, and now stretched into years. At night I still sang, not on any stage that mattered, only in bars where the lights flickered and the audience drank until their laughter drowned out the music. They paid me in cash so thin I could fold it twice and lose it in my pocket. I gave them my voice anyway. They wanted noise. I gave them truth. Most did not hear it. A few paused, startled by the shout I could not suppress, but they turned back to their glasses and forgot. I kept singing, not for them, but for me. Gloria was the rope that held me. She would knock on my door on Saturdays, leaving a folded paper with hymn numbers scribbled in her hand. On Sunday I followed. The church was worn, the pews cracked, but the air inside was different. No one asked who wrote the song. No one asked whose face belonged on the sleeve. We lifted our voices together, and the walls carried them higher than we could reach alone. For a moment, I felt whole. For a moment, I believed I still belonged to something larger than my silence, but when the hymns ended, the quiet returned. Bills waited, shifts waited, the long grind of being unseen. I moved from one rooming house to another, one city to the next, dragging my suitcase of uniforms and my notebook of songs. I kept the notebook under my pillow like a relic. Some nights I opened it, some nights I could not bear to. The pages smelled of oil and smoke from all the places they had traveled. They reminded me of who I had been and who I no longer was. Sometimes I promised myself I would stop. I swore the voice would die with me if I could not make it live for others. But silence was heavier than song. A hum slipped out while I swept the floor. A verse followed me down the hallway. I tried to bury it. It refused to die. The music was stitched into my ribs. I could not cut it out. Anger came like weather. Sudden, unbearable. I wanted to scream Richard's name into the night. I wanted to claw Janet's face off the records that bore my song. But rage without witness only poisons the one who holds it. So I swallowed it. I stood at the sink with my hands in cold water. Until the storm passed, I told myself rage builds nothing. Dignity builds bone. And I needed bone more than I needed fire. The years gathered without asking permission. I did not count them in birthdays. I counted them in shifts, in burnt hands, in shoes worn to the sole. My body bent, but did not break. My eyes learned patience the hard way. The girl who once begged for doors to open was gone. In her place stood a woman who knew how to survive without applause. Every so often, Gloria would drag me to a community fair, a plywood stage, a piano missing a note, a crowd distracted by food and children. She would nudge me forward. I would resist until resistance felt like betrayal. Then I sang. The first verse always came tight. The second began to loosen, and by the bridge the air changed. The shout broke out of me like a vow too old to contain. For a heartbeat the noise dipped, and strangers listened. A child went still. A woman lowered her hands. They did not know my name. They did not know my history. They only felt the truth cut through the air. That was enough. I aged in the open. Lines carved themselves beside my mouth. My hands grew skillful with work I once despised. I learned to carry 3 plates without spilling, to fold linen so smooth it caught the light. I learned to exchange hours of my body for enough money to eat, but I also learned something deeper, that dignity lives in the doing, not in applause, not in credit, in doing, and in not quitting. One evening, I looked in the mirror and spoke aloud. Let her rest. The name that had been stolen, mocked, erased. Selina Carter. Let her sleep. She had carried enough wounds. If I was to go on, it would be with a name no one could touch. Evelyn Cross. The syllables steadied me. They felt like a doorway. They felt like a shield. The first night I sang as Evelyn, the bar was narrow and dim. The owner said 3 songs, nothing longer. I kept my eyes low and my voice plain. But when I reached the chorus, I let the shout out. Sharp, true, alive. For a breath, the noise dipped. A man turned his head, startled, as if a ghost had brushed past. He stared, then returned to his drink. But I knew. The sound had landed. The voice was still mine. After that, I carried on. Work. Rest. Sing. Not to be discovered. To endure. Each note a vow. Each chorus proof that I had not been erased inside. Shame still visited, whispering that I was late, that I was small, that I was nothing. But I answered calmly now. I am here. I am still singing. The world forgot me, but I did not forget myself. 25 years passed this way. 25 years of shifts and scraps, of hymns and cheap bars, of notebooks smudged with oil and sweat. 25 years of keeping the flame small and alive, until the day I stood before the church bulletin board and saw a poster. Civic Voices Night. A simple contest, nothing grand, but the words caught me, and at the bottom, in small print, one name: Marcus Reed, guest judge. I tore the strip with the entry date, folded it, slipped it into the pocket of the jacket that bore my new name, Evelyn Cross, and I knew the years had not broken me. They had prepared me. I am still the breath before the chorus. I am still the rise. I am still the strike. And when the door opens, even if it is small, I will enter with a name no hand can steal. I did not go to that contest for glory. I went because silence had carried me long enough. The poster was pinned crooked on the church board. Civic Voices Night. Nothing grand, nothing glittering. A handful of local singers, a prize barely worth the ink. But my eyes caught the name at the bottom. Guest judge, Marcus Reed. I folded the strip into my pocket and tried not to shake. I told myself it was only a song, only one more small room. But deep inside, I knew it was a door. On the night of the contest, I felt out of place the moment I walked in. The backstage was crowded with young faces painted bright, voices warming up in playful bursts. They laughed, compared dresses, checked each other's hair. I stood in my plain jacket, holding nothing but my breath. Their eyes slid toward me, curious, dismissive, and I heard one whisper, "She's too old." I pressed my hand against the scars on my fingers, the ones years of labor had carved, and I breathed through it. I was not their age, but the song in me had not grown old. When they called my name, Evelyn Cross, I stepped into the lights. The stage was small, the crowd smaller, but my throat still clenched as if I were carrying the weight of an entire city. I chose an old soul song, nothing flashy, nothing that begged. The first verse wavered, thin with nerves. I kept going. Each line steadied, each chorus lifted higher, and when the final bridge came, I let it go. The shout ripped out of me like it had been waiting 25 years for breath, raw, fierce, alive. For one heartbeat, the room froze. Forks midair, conversations unfinished. Then the applause began, hesitant at first, then growing, then rolling toward me like a tide. I bowed my head, not to thank them, but to catch my balance. The voice was still mine. The years had not killed it, but one pair of eyes did not clap. Marcus. He had been leaning back in his chair, casual, almost bored, until the shout. Then he sat forward. His face locked on me like a man who had seen a ghost. His lips moved, barely a sound. "Selena?" The cameras caught none of it. Only I felt the tremor in his stare. When it was over, I slipped off stage, heart hammering. I wanted to vanish before anyone asked questions, but in the narrow hallway behind the stage, I heard it. My name. Not Evelyn, not Cross, the one I had buried. "Selena?" I turned. Marcus stood there, older, lined, but unmistakable. His eyes searched me with disbelief and certainty at once. "Tell me it's you. Tell me I'm not mad." I wanted to deny him. I wanted to hold tight to the shield I had built. But my throat refused. My voice came low, breaking. "Selena Carter died a long time ago. But yes, it was me." He stepped closer, as if afraid I might disappear. "I knew it." That shout. It could only be you. I was in the room back then. I remember the walls shaking. I thought they had buried you. "They did," I whispered. "They closed the door, and I never found another one." He shook his head, fierce. "Then we will build one. Together. Your name deserves to stand where it was stolen. The world needs to know." I felt both hunger and terror rise in me. After so many years of silence, the thought of truth being spoken aloud was almost unbearable. But Marcus's voice carried no pity, only resolve. For the first time in decades, someone called me by the name I thought was lost, and did not flinch. Later that night, alone, I sat with my old notebook open beside the folded contest poster, past and present side by side. My hands trembled, but not from weakness. I traced the letters of my buried name, then the new one stitched into my jacket. Evelyn, Selena, both alive now, both breathing in the same body. I had not come to win a prize. I had not come to be discovered. I had come to be heard. And being heard opened a door I thought was gone forever. The silence had carried me for 25 years. That night, it finally set me down, and I knew the real stage was still ahead. Marcus Reed found me in the hallway after the little contest. Breath caught, eyes fixed like a man who had just recognized a ghost. He said my buried name, and the floor tilted. I wanted to hide behind the one I use now, Evelyn. But the truth rose first. Yes, it was me. He did not ask for forgiveness. He did not explain the years he stayed quiet. He said only this: "Let me stand beside you now. Not with talk, with work." I let the words sit. Pride wanted to shut the door. Need left it open a crack. I nodded once, not absolution. Agreement to try. That night, I opened the old notebook. The pages smelled of years I had survived. I turned past songs that hurt and found a blank that did not flinch. I wrote until my hand shook. A melody built itself from shifts and silence, from the breath I learned to ration, from the vow I kept when no one listened. The chorus came last, spare and certain, a place where the shout could arrive without asking permission. I called the song Open Throat. It was not about victory. It was about survival that refuses to whisper. Marcus took me to a small studio. No glamour, only air that knew music from labor. I stood before the microphone and tried not to remember the room where they took everything. Verse 1 arrived thin. Verse 2 found muscle. The bridge widened like a door. When the shout came, I did not force it. I let it step forward, raw, clean. My name inside it, even if no one heard the name. Silence followed, not the old kind that erased me, but the new kind that meant impact. Through the glass, Marcus said, "We have it." I believed him. He carried the track to a late-night radio host who still trusted feeling over fashion. The man listened, went quiet, then said he wanted to play it that night. I walked the block while the signal traveled. Cars hissed by, windows glowed. Somewhere, a stranger was hearing me without knowing me. The host spoke between choruses. "Who is Evelyn Cross? Where did this voice come from?" Calls flooded his line. A driver pulled over to breathe. A nurse on break said the ending felt like hands steadying her back. A boy stammered that the shout made his chest ache in a good way. The host played it again. I stood in the dark and shook, not with fear, with the weight of being received. When the song ended, I pressed my palm to my throat and laughed once. The small laugh you make when a door you stop knocking on swings open on its own. I was still Evelyn. I was also the girl they had tried to bury. Both truths stood up in me at the same time and did not argue. The next evening, someone knocked with the careful rhythm of guilt. I opened the door to Tom, the studio assistant from those days, older now, shoulders drawn in as if the past had weather. He spoke my name with respect I did not expect. Selena. Then he set a small case on my table. Inside lay a worn reel. The label was smudged, but 2 letters still held like iron. S. Carter. He placed a thin folder beside it. The session log, his scrawled notes, dates, takes, the line he used to draw under the chorus when the room went still. "I kept it," Tom said. "No performance. No excuses." I was a coward back then, but I could not burn what was yours. I waited for the day I could give it back. My fingers shook as I lifted the reel. Proof has a weight memory cannot imitate. "Why now?" I asked, and my voice did not accuse. It asked for air. "Because I heard the new song," he said, "because lies do not deserve longer lives than the people they wound." I pressed the case to my sternum until my breathing found me again. We did not celebrate. We guarded the quiet like a flame. The radio kept spinning Open Throat. The question, "Who is Evelyn Cross?" began to travel farther than the street where I stood. A small column mentioned my name without history. Someone wrote that the voice sounded old and new at once, like a bell hammered out of ship metal. I clipped nothing. I listened when the host replayed the messages. What mattered was the sound making a place for itself out in the open. Then the call came for Marcus. A Grammy producer had been hunting for a voice to open their soul tribute without polish. He heard the track on the radio, asked who I was and whether I would stand under bigger lights for one song. Marcus repeated the details like a man carrying glass. I sat down before my legs reminded me. For a long beat, I said nothing. Then I asked the only question that mattered. One song. As Evelyn? As Evelyn, he said. They do not know the rest. I thought of the girl I had been, erased before she had a chance to fail on her own. I thought of the woman who had learned to sing without asking doors to open. I pictured the stage and felt fear arrive, loud, insistent, sure of itself. I let it speak. Then I set it aside. What remained was the work and the vow. I would sing the new song, the one no one could steal. If the air held afterward, I would ask for a minute of truth, not a trial, a sentence. And when doubt tried to breathe, I would let the old real answer. Marcus nodded. We will not shout before the note. We will let the note open the room. Tom ran his hand across the log as if blessing it. When you call, I bring this. I will not leave your side. Gloria, who had been quiet, eyes bright with the stubborn faith that saved me, took my wrist and counted breaths with me. In for steadiness, out for courage, again, until the body understood we were not going to run. I wrote the speech I could carry without shaking, 10 words, maybe fewer, a sentence that would not collapse when the lights pressed down. I practiced it in the mirror until my mouth trusted it. I placed the invitation on the table beside the reel and watched the two of them make a shape I could live inside. Night returned soft. I opened the notebook and wrote both names on the same line. Selena Carter, Evelyn Cross. No slash, no wall, a hyphen like a bridge I would walk across in front of everyone. I closed the book and laid my hand on it. The pulse under my skin matched the one inside the page. I am not new. I am not gone. I have written a song from the long road and the long quiet, and the world has started to answer. They invited Evelyn to sing, but the breath inside her belongs to Selena, the first voice, the voice that survived the burial. When the moment comes, I will step into it. I will carry the new song like a banner, and the old reel like a stone. I will not beg. I will not explain. I will open my throat, and then, if the room is listening, I will tell them a single truth that cannot be unsaid. My song was everywhere, a loop on night radio, a hook humming from passing cars, a chorus in the mouths of people who did not know my history and loved me anyway. Hearing my own name said like a question, Evelyn Cross, did not make me float. It made me stand still. It made me breathe like I was about to lift something heavy. The reel. Tom returned, sat on my table. Stubborn, patient. Proof does not beg. It waits. A knock, hard, certain, cut the room in half. I opened the door. Richard Hale filled the frame with a smile that had never learned humility. So, the ghost sings again. My ribs tightened, then held. The voice never left, I said. I did. He let his eyes sweep my room the way a buyer checks a floor for flaws. They clap now, he murmured. They clap for sob stories. They love a comeback trailer. By morning they will buy something whiter, younger, cleaner. I let the words pass and kept my feet. He leaned closer, voice soft and sour. You were a voice that needed a face. I gave it one. Janet had the face. I had the contracts. You had a notebook and a choir dress. Say it plain, I said. Say what you mean. He obliged. An old black woman with a church shout is not a product. It is folklore. You are a minute between commercials. A pity minute. Take your little radio victory. It is charity. Doors like to be closed. I can still make calls. Every sentence was a bruise he wanted back. The old part of me, the part trained to shrink, stirred. Then the years I had lived in silence stood up and locked their knees. You did not make this voice, I said. You cannot bury what you did not create. He laughed without warmth. I turned pages into product. Useful things are owned. That is how it works. Silence is not ownership, I answered. It is theft with manners. He sighed, bored by my refusal to break. Sing your minute. Let the room feel noble. Tomorrow they will remember the face they already bought. You do not headline. You haunt. You mistook attention for power once, I said. Now you mistake contempt for safety. His mouth tilted. Enjoy your moment. He turned, dismissal like a door slamming without sound, and walked away as if certainty were a coat he would never have to take off. The hall swallowed him. I stood very still, listened to the echo of his contempt, and felt it fail to land. It scraped the bone I had grown in the dark and snapped on contact. I went to the table. The reel waited. My hands shook, not with fear, with decision. He had given me one gift without meaning to. Clarity. Rage pounded and left. Resolve stayed. I breathed in for steadiness, out for courage. Again. Again. Until the words inside me settled where voice becomes sound. I remembered strangers calling in to say the chorus steadied them. I remembered Tom's hands shaking when he gave my name back to me in plastic and ink. I remembered Marcus saying we will let the note open the room. I remembered the way Richard said pity and meant purchase. I would not answer him with spit. I would answer him under light. On the table beside the reel lay an envelope I had opened and folded and opened again until the crease learned my thumb. I unfolded it one more time because I needed the words to stand in the same room as my breath. At the top, the Recording Academy, Grammy Awards. Below, my name, the name I carry now. Dear Ms. Evelyn Cross, we invite you to perform one song in the Soul Tribute segment at the Grammy Awards. Rehearsal is scheduled. Live broadcast. No mention of who I used to be. No footnote for the years I had vanished. Only a door, measured and bright. One song, 1 minute of light that would not pretend to be kind. I traced my name with my finger and felt 2 names answer from the inside. Evelyn, the woman who survived. Selena, the girl they tried to unmake. They stood together for once, not struggling, not bargaining, one breath. I set the letter beside the reel, not to hide it, to crown it. Fear thinned. A quiet fire held its shape. I would go where the light is loudest and stand there with my throat open. I would sing what I wrote from the long road. I would leave no room for the lie he wanted to breathe over me again. I am not a ghost. I am not a rumor. I am the breath before the chorus, the rise, the strike. When the lights come, I will not shrink. When the room quiets, I will not apologize. I will stand. I will open my throat, and whatever speaks after will have to speak to a woman who is done being small. They said my name, and I stepped onto the Grammy stage. I held the mic, steady, close, breath first, then sound. Before the first note, I let my eyes find the first rose. He was there, Richard Hale. Beside him, Janet Cole. I did not look away. I began with the song I wrote out of the long quiet. Verse held tight, another verse wider. The bridge like a door I finally chose to cross. Then the shout, not for spectacle, for truth, iron meeting air. It left my throat and stayed, bright, unafraid. A clean silence held, then applause rose and rolled. I let it pass through. If I may, give me a few minutes. The room settled. I kept my voice plain. My name is Evelyn Cross, and beneath it is the name I was born to sing with, Selena Carter. I need to say this clearly. No fog, no pretty words. I wrote a song called Broken Promise. I wrote the verses. I wrote the chorus. I went into a studio and recorded it with my whole chest. The shout you heard from me tonight lived in that recording first. It was mine. After I recorded it, my manager, Richard Hale, took the master. He took the session that held my voice. He changed the sleeve. He put Janet Cole's name on it and gave my song to her to carry. He erased my name and told me to be grateful. He said my name would not sell. He said the world does not buy a poor black girl from a choir. I let the words reach the first rows. I watched them land. I want you to hear what I am saying in the plainest way. Broken Promise was my song. Richard Hale took it from me. He gave it to Janet Cole. That happened. I tilted my head, small, certain. Tom, please. A click. The soft hiss before breath. The reel began to turn. The past answered itself. Dry, bare, unafraid. Verse sure of its road. The bridge like the door I was pushed through. Then the shout, the exact edge that had just left my throat, now arriving from years ago, unchanged. 2 notes, 1 life, calling and answering across time. No one moved. No one needed to. That was me, I said. The first voice you never knew. Marcus Reed stepped from the wing. No flourish, only bone. I was in that room when this was recorded. I heard this voice go down on tape. I looked again to the first rows. I watched Richard lose his color, the jaw set then loosen. The hand clenched the armrest until the knuckles blanched. He tried to arrange a smile and arrived at a grimace. He smoothed his tie, missed the knot, swallowed hard. For a breath he lifted from his seat, then sat as if the chair had grown hands. His eyes searched for a door that was not open. I saw Janet press her lips together, eyes wet, not singing along to the voice she had been given. She glanced toward him, once, and then down, as if the ground could forgive what the sleeve had asked her to carry. The room took a breath and broke wide. People stood. They shouted. They whistled. They called my names like they belonged to the same breath. Evelyn. Selena. Again and again. Richard clapped twice, late, the way a man claps in church when he does not know the hymn. His hands fell to his knees and stayed there, empty. Then the noise climbed higher, and he tried again. He rose in a hurry, sideways through the row, eyes on the aisle, and left the hall without looking back. I raised the mic for one last thing. To the managers who confuse contracts with creation, hear me. To the doors that close softly and call it business, hear me. To Richard Hale, hear me. Broken Promise was my song. You took it. You gave it to Janet. That was me. The wave climbed higher. Whistles, shouts, a sound that felt like air returning to lungs. I did not bow for mercy, and I did not bargain for belief. I let the proof keep speaking in the air without me. I came to sing, and to give a name back to a song. Thank you for listening. I lowered the mic. From the stage, I watched the space he had left behind, a gap where certainty used to sit, and watched Janet touch her eyes and keep her head down. I turned toward the wing and felt the weight lift from my throat and travel back to the hands that tried to own it. In the dark edge of the stage, Tom pressed the warm case into my palm, the label smudged and still mine. Gloria's fingers steadied my forearm, not to hold me up, to stand with me. Marcus nodded once, a promise kept. Behind us, the roar did not fade. It kept working. His seat was empty now. I said it to myself so I would remember it exactly. Here, at the Grammy stage, in front of them both. I told the truth plainly. I brought the real. I brought the witness. I said his name. I said mine. The room listened and answered. They invited Evelyn to sing. Selena answered with her breath. What comes next will be paper and hours in rooms that do not glitter. Let them come. Tonight I took back the first piece, the name of my song and the ground under my voice, while Richard Hale stood, turned, and left a hall that finally refused to keep his lie. The morning after the Grammys, I did not hold a microphone. I held a pen. I wrote my name, the name I live in now, and beneath it, the name they once tried to erase. I filed the suit. No speeches, no headlines in my mouth, only one promise to myself. The room has heard. Now the court will listen. Calls came and kept coming. Voices that once went gentle when they wanted me to disappear sounded urgent now. I said little. I saved my breath. I would speak in one place, once, and plainly. I had brought the real into light. Paper would learn its name. Days moved like heavy doors, slow, stubborn, then suddenly open. I sat at a table I did not choose, under a clock I did not set. I kept my hands folded. I was not there to perform. I was there to say what happened and to let proof do its work. I said my name, both of them, and I said the title that had been taken. I said who took it and who carried it. I did not reach for anger. I reached for air. They played the real. The shout met itself across years and did not break. My chest stayed steady. My voice stayed simple. That was me. Janet spoke, small and careful. She said she had been handed a finished song, told to carry it as if it were hers. She said she was sorry. I believed the part that belonged to her, the part that did not swing the theft, only wore it. I nodded once and let the rest belong to the day. Richard sat close enough for me to see him try on faces. Calm, boredom, authority. None of them fit. His jaw worked. His hands could not be still. He blinked the way men blink when brightness finds them unprepared. When the judge asked, he spoke like a man reading a page he had not chosen. The old certainty that used to fill hallways could not fill this room. I watched it drain without lifting a finger. The court spoke in a tone that does not need to shout. Credits corrected, rights restored, royalties that had flowed under other names turned around and came home. An apology to be placed where the lie had stood. Not a miracle, a correction. I felt the floor rise under my feet. I let my shoulders drop. I let my breath go out and come back clean. But the room did not close on my name alone. The door I opened let other voices in. Women who had been told their names would not sell. Singers who had been fitted with silence the way a dress is pinned at the waist. Stories that sounded too alike to be accident. The office that writes charges wrote his. The man who said the world would never buy a girl like me learned that the world sometimes buys truth and law and time served. I did not cheer when the sentence came. I did not clap for the weight that landed where it belonged. I sat with my hands on my knees and felt how quiet can mean something different when it is earned. He would pay what the court said he must pay. He would sit where the court said he must sit. That part was not my music. That part was gravity. My name returned to my song. It appeared where it should have slept all along, on sleeves, on screens, in credits that once blinked past me like I was not there. A statement arrived with numbers that proved a river had changed course. I opened it slowly. I did not cry. I touched the paper and felt years unclench. Gloria called and said the choir would stand behind me any day I asked. Marcus sent a photo of the real case, stubborn as ever, my initials thick and unafraid at the edge. People asked how it felt. I said it felt like breath, like a room that once held its air now letting it go, like a throat unclasping. They asked if I forgave. I said, forgiveness is a hymn I can sing when I am ready. Today I am singing truth. Tomorrow I may sing mercy. Both are mine to choose. Neither can be forced. I walked past the studio that once taught me the shape of an ignored knock. I did not flinch. I went inside and signed the metadata the way a person signs a birth record. The clerk looked up and smiled without knowing why. I smiled back because I did. I do not rehearse his fall in my head. I do not taste his fear and call it justice. Justice is quieter than that. It is a door that stays true to the frame. It is a name where a name belongs. It is money that knows which hands earned it. It is the end of a sentence that begins with, I took and ends with you cannot keep it. At night I hold the new sleeve. The letters look simple, black on light, but they carry weight like iron. I think of the girl who brought a notebook and a hunger and believed a promise that did not belong to her. I think of the woman who learned to work and wait and keep a flame low where wind could not steal it. They stand together now. They breathe the same breath. They answer to the same name. I am asked what comes next. I say breath comes next. Work comes next. The church hum under the modern beat. A recording where the choir becomes my ocean and the truth rides on top. A fund for the quiet fighters who will need a lawyer before they need a stage. A promise spoken out loud to any girl who thinks her voice is too heavy for the room. It is not. The room can learn. If you need a lesson, I have only this. Broken Promise was my song. A man took it and gave it away. I took it back. He faces the price of what he did, not because I prayed for his fall, but because the ground does not tilt forever for the man who lies. I did not win by shouting. I won by breathing. I won by making sound where silence had been laid over me like a sheet. I am not small anymore. I am not quiet anymore. I am exactly the size of my voice and the reach of my breath. I will not spend another year apologizing for either. Let the paper keep its records. Let the law keep its hours. I will keep my name. I will keep my song. I will keep walking into rooms that used to empty themselves of me and filling them with what I carry. On the day the last document was stamped, I went home and set the reel on the table. I said thank you to the plastic, to the hiss, to the stubborn proof that refuses to be pretty. I said thank you to the woman who waited. I said thank you to the girl who believed music could tell the truth, even when no one else would. Then I turned the reel once with my finger, just enough to hear the faintest ghost of a breath, and I answered it with mine.